All right, gang, before we get started, I have some amazing coaching announcements. Now, the first thing you know that I'm all about cycling and I'm all about fitness and I'm all about nutrition. Now, I have two amazing things that I am launching this spring. One of them is fitness related. Now, cycling is great for cardio, but ladies, we need to build our muscles and keep ourselves strong. Same with you guys. So go to cyclefitness.online. I have an online membership and you get on my VIP list to get amazing deals for this membership for the summer. And then I have a get your cycling skills all in one shot in a 4-hour workshop. Now go to cyclingskillspro.com, use the code PEDAL to get $50 off this amazing 4-hour workshop where you're going to get all the skills you need to really launch yourself into the cycling ski season. So take care and enjoy this episode. Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of Secrets in the Saddle, all things cycling with your host, Sylvie. And I have an amazing young lady, Emily Flynn. She's, I would say like a local hero, legend. You started in Ottawa, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And the fun thing about it is that Emily started at a very young age and she has continued her cycling career to where she is now. So I'm really excited to bring her story to our podcast because I think it's really cool having, had a racer who started young and still on a path. So welcome, Emily, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Before you get started, I'm just going to go over a little bit of her bio, which is going to give you a background, then we're going to dive right in. Okay. So Emily started with LaRocca Mountain Bike Club, and actually I started my mountain bike career there too. Not that I had a big career, but I started there getting cycling skills a little later in late age, but so Dominic is an amazing woman in locally, and she had a women's cycling camp, mountain bike camp that I attended like 25 years ago. Anyways, I date myself. But so the young age of 9, Emily grasped cycling and she loved it so much she started racing at the age of 11. So I believe that's when the Sunset Series was on. Mm-hmm. Okay, first locally, then she moved to provincial and then made it nationally. She did the camps for Team Ontario and then started to train more on the road side, which is usually a lot of mountain bikers just navigate to the road. I did too. And eventually turned into racing as well. While still she raced as mountain bike, she made a full progression to road and switched to road fully after making the Canada Summer Games. Oh, we have to hear about that. Okay. And then Team Ontario in 2013, crazy. And now I met Emily at a physio clinic. She was working there. I believe that's the first time we met.
I think so, yeah. Like I think our paths had probably crossed and like we knew of each other, but I think that was the first time like we met.
Yeah, that's when we got chatting and she was working there and I was, just waiting for my treatment. And so she started racing with a very prominent team, the Cyclery, in town. She raced there for 5 years. In 2019, she joined a professional crit team called LA Sweat. So we're going to like really dive into, the whole story. Emily, let's take you back to when you're 9 years old.
I mean, my mom wanted to, get me out of the house in the summer and stuff. Like she had to go to work. So she kicked me out of the house, was finding all these sports camps for me and my siblings to attend. And then one of the ones that she came across was a mountain bike camp. And it, at that time, was at Camp Fortune. And like you mentioned, it was Dominic that ran it. And I went there and I fell in love. Like my first mountain bike, my first bike was from the dump that my parents got me. But
All
I
my
remember
kids'
my
bikes
first
come
mountain bike for that camp. I bought it. It had no suspension, no nothing. And everyone was really surprised by that. But I took it and went, and I loved it. And Dom and I got along really well. She's a really energetic person, and so am I. And I just loved that camp, and I kept going back every year. And first it was a week, and then it was 2 weeks, and then it was the whole summer. And
Did you
and then I
turn
kind of
into an
started working there a
instructor?
bit. Yeah,
Ah, yeah.
exactly. And then on Dom's suggestion, she was like, you should start racing. So I just kind of started locally with the Sunset Series, as you mentioned, which really is a brutal course.
It is.
It's so hard. But yeah, started there and like loved that, and then just kind of kept climbing the ranks, and then my mom would just, we'd drive basically every weekend. A lot of the mountain biking events in Ontario took place more in southern Ontario. So it was a lot of driving towards the Toronto area like every weekend. And
Your
I
mom
actually,
a mountain biker as well?
pardon me?
Did your mom ride?
Not really, no. She did some kind of clinics and stuff with Dom, and she tried it, and like my family kind of always biked, but not to the same extent necessarily, because I grew up about like an hour south of Ottawa in Winchester, which is just cornfields. Like, so to drive to Camp Fortune for camp was like a big deal. Like it was an hour and a half almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the mountains out my way were non-existent. It was cornfields. Hence why I eventually made more of the switch to road, because again, I had to drive pretty far to access any real trails. And it just kind of, especially when most of the racing was happening in southern Ontario, their winter ends a lot sooner than our winter does. And so like the first race would be March, and it would still be full on winter here, but down there they'd already been riding for at least a couple weeks on their mountain bike. Like sometimes I'd show up for my first mountain bike race of the season, and it'd be my first time essentially on my mountain bike. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, definitely a lot of driving to Toronto in those days. And my mom was a trooper, just living out of the car essentially and hotel to hotel.
What about the other siblings? Did they jump into mountain biking as well?
Yeah, so my brother's quite a bit older than me actually, and I guess he kind of also started this bug. He was doing downhill racing.
Okay.
And so a lot of the events, I would do the Quebec Cups just because I found the Quebec mountain biking scene more fun than the Ontario scene. It was more technical, which is what I kind of excel at. And so he would do usually the downhill race was Sunday and my race would be Saturday. So it made kind of a perfect weekend. And my sister, who's 3 years younger than me, she did some mountain biking as well, and also went to Dom's camp for a bit, but is a little less competitive than me. So she did some of the Sunset Series and is definitely an avid cyclist, but not so much on the racing side of things.
Your mom's probably like, whew.
Oh yeah, so much going on.
So how did you land into going to the provincials? Is that like just from your finishes? Like,
yeah,
so
kind of just attending different like Ontario Cups. Like I say, I started with Quebec Cups, and then I kind of realized at that point I didn't speak much French. My brother lived in Quebec, so I was able to use his address for my Quebec license. But I kind of figured if I was going to like progress in the sport, I should probably do it in my home province. So then I started doing more Ontario races, and then just based off of like finishing results and stuff like that, I got invited to Team Ontario camps, and then they would take us to Canada Cups, often in Quebec, like in Bromont and Mont Saint Anne and stuff like that. So yeah, I would do those camps with Team Ontario, and then nationals. I remember I think the furthest I ended up going was to Canmore, Alberta for mountain bike nationals one year.
That must have been cool.
Beautiful. Oh yeah. And
how does that compare?
Different mountains compared to here for sure. Like real mountains.
Yeah. You're like, oh my, I haven't done enough training up and down Camp Fortune for this one. So all right, so now you're in the mountain bike scene. When did you were you one of those that used the road to train for mountain bike, and then you just sort of transitioned straight to road and you found racing, or how did you do that transition?
Yeah, I think my coach at the time, I needed to train, and as I mentioned, it was pretty inaccessible to try to always get to the trails from where I lived. So I started to train more on the road just because I could, leave my front door and be on my ride. And then kind of, yeah, so train on that, and then maybe, trying a couple races, just why not? And there was more races closer to me here too. Like there was Calabogie was a lot closer, and there was more of a road scene in Ottawa, and there still is, I'd say, in general, than a mountain bike scene. So there was more of a community for the road scene, I found.
That time though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I could join people on rides and stuff like that. Yeah, and then for a while I kind of did both. I did like a whole season of mountain bike racing and road racing, and also cyclocross racing. And I remember I was exhausted actually that year, because I did full season for all three, and I was on the line at cyclocross nationals in Vancouver crying because I was just so tired. And I was like, I think I need to make a decision. But like I remember that year too, like I did mountain bike nationals in St. Félicien, Quebec. My mom and I stayed there. And then I had made the Ontario team for road, actually, just from a result from a race for nationals. And so we drove from St. Félicien to Lac-Mégantic, from one mountain bike nationals to the next road nationals.
I was there. Okay. Was that like 2013?
That sounds right. Yeah, I think.
It was right before the accident.
Yes. Yes, I remember that, because then that happened and I was like, oh my God, like I was just there.
Oh, I was there too. I was coaching one of the girls on my team, and we had to go, well, she made it to nationals, and yeah, that was a rainy, nasty well, for you anyways. I was like, but yeah,
that was a long season. And just, I think that season as well, I think, yeah, because 2013 is when I went to Canada Summer Games, and I was doing both, and I ended up winning a race that made me an automatic qualifier for the road team.
Cool.
I was on the short list for both road and mountain bike at the time, but then I won this race, and it was like, you're like 100%, you're guaranteed to go for road, essentially, which worked out because later that year I broke my collarbone at UCI Gatineau race that I did with the Western Quebec Wheelers.
You're racing for them. Okay.
Yeah, they kind of opened up a door for me, because I was basically racing independent on the road, unless I was at a certain camp or a certain event with Ontario, but otherwise I was independent. And then, so they kind of brought me on and invited me to do the Gatineau race. And then I broke my collarbone there, which was devastating. I mean, all my years of mountain biking, I'd never broken a bone, nothing. And everyone thinks mountain biking is so much more dangerous, but really road riding is, because you're going much faster, you're like on harder pavement, there's more people around you. And so like first huge race, I break my collarbone. But thankfully, best case scenario, I broke it in a time that gave me enough time to recover so I could still go to Canada Games, which was later in August. And I'd already made the team. Like I'd already won a race that solidified my spot. So it was best case scenario, really, and it worked out, and I still got to go.
Go? Or did you recover it in time?
Yep. It was really cool. And that's kind of where I first really met Jenny as well, actually.
Okay. Well, at the UCI race?
So I kind of knew of her around because she lived in Gatineau at the time as well. But she was a coach for Canada Summer Games for the women for road. She was the female kind of chaperone and coach for that. And that's where I first really met her. And she was the one that was like, you need to decide between road and mountain bike, and you're better at the road. I was like, oh, okay.
All right. Twist my arm.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
much right.
I want to do what I'm better at anyways. So yeah, okay. And then she started to coach me after that.
Okay, is that when you started racing with Cyclery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she was already coaching Cyclery when you met her.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so everybody, as you're listening to this episode, you have to go and listen to the Jenny True episode. And I should have said that vice versa. Come over and listen to Emily, because I just interviewed her, and you should go check it out.
Perfect segues.
You'll like hear all this, the segue into this,
all the different sides of the story.
So, which is kind of cool. So now you started. So you spent 5 years there. How was that? Like, is that where you made most of your progress into being more of a sprinter?
Yeah.
for road?
Yeah, I'd say so. So I kind of always knew I was more of a sprinter because the race I mentioned that I won for Canada Summer Games qualification, I won in a sprint, and I was like, oh, okay, like that's pretty cool. I can do this. And yeah, Jenny kind of took me under her wing, and Jenny was a very good sprinter, and I think saw that I
Yeah.
am more of a sprinter as well, and she definitely taught me the ropes and was a great coach. And then through that team was such a great group of women, and it was like a core group of women for probably 4 years of the time I was there. And it was lovely because Jenny and Chris, her husband, who also helped run it, lived in Ottawa and the Ottawa-Gatineau area, and so did I. So it was really hands-on. Like I could ask them for help anytime, and like it was really hands-on coaching. Like she could see me at races, as opposed to sometimes like your coach is, off somewhere else and can't come to races and stuff like that. So it was really nice. Like I got, in real time feedback and stuff. And then we all kind of learned from each other as well. Like all the different women that were on the team had many different skill sets and have gone many different places as well too.
Yeah, a lot of you girls have progressed to like the track and
I think it shows like it was such a really well run team, but just a nice environment, because especially females don't stay in the sport as often, but the majority of that team is still racing, still competing, and if not, they're still active, at least in the community in cycling.
And so that brings us to a question I know we've talked about is, like I would say like teenagers, female teenagers or girls, I'll say girls in high school. And the fact that there are very few, probably provincially, that are in cycling. And do you think, like, I know that we've talked about a gap. Where can you see, can you see yourself being in that position, like, since you've gone through that kind of, that longevity of through high school, still racing? Do you see where you could create interest for girls in high school to become, like, to pick up the bike? Like, even if it's the first time?
Yeah, I had the benefit, like, so starting in mountain biking was more of an individual sport. So I was kind of used to the individual side, and also having grown up in a cornfield, I was pretty used to hanging out by myself. But I think, yeah, like literally.
You grew up on a farm, you're just like, yeah, by myself. There's my brother, my siblings. Maybe we play together, maybe we don't.
Exactly. So I was like pretty used to like not having like teammates and stuff like that. But I know like most teenage girls and stuff, like they thrive off the social aspect of sport, and if they lose that, they lose their interest in the sport. And so I think that's really important, is having a good team, and whether that be through starting a program in schools. Like I remember, again, with mountain biking, a lot of the Southern Ontario schools had cross-country mountain bike team in high school, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like I didn't have that. And like that would have opened the doors for so many more women in my school if that had just been an option. Because there is a high school mountain bike racing series, but it's mostly not in Ottawa, in Ontario, but it's mostly around Southern Ontario is where all the races are. Again, it kind of becomes this location gap, really. The majority of the racing is in the Toronto area. So it becomes, there's a lot of onus on people in the East to travel there all the time and stuff. But if that had been an option in our school, it would have been amazing. But it's also going to come down to a teacher that wants to help run that program and stuff like that. But that would be the start, I think, for sure, is just letting people know that it's actually a possibility, like that this is a sport. It's not a mainstream sport, so you're not just going to come across it, and it's not taught in schools. But if it needs to be, for people to know that it's an option. And it doesn't have to be racing, it could just be being active on the bike.
I like that. But that's the thing, you always have to have somebody who's internally available to do something like that. Because I actually I helped my daughter's high school with track and field, because nobody was available, and I said, well, I've done track and field back in high school. I used to be pretty good and hurdles and sprinting. And so I remember the training because I really like track and field. I wasn't dragged there by like some people are like, you got to do track, but and I just remember that and I did cross country running as the coach, because they didn't have anybody. And I was like, well, I did cross country as well. But then it really did come down to, like volunteering. It had to be, unfortunately it didn't last, but it was really cool being able to go and coach.
Yeah.
kids.
Like, I mean, in high school, we had a rowing team. And like I say, I grew up in the country. So like we drove into Ottawa to go to the Ottawa Rowing Club. And I was like, why do we have a rowing team and not like a mountain bike team or like just a biking team or a cross country ski team? But it came down to like what that teacher wanted to put like their interest into. They liked rowing, so they wanted to have a rowing team type thing.
Yeah, you have to have a lead, I guess. And it's sad that, they don't open up things like that to, parents who would like to do that. I mean, even if their kid wasn't involved,
Yeah.
like
Oh, for sure.
my daughter didn't do cross country. I was just like, yeah, I love cross country, and I still love cross country running now, but yeah, then it was, short-lived but fun. So now you're sitting okay, so when because after Cyclery you moved, what stemmed your decision to go to the States? Because I mean, I know Canada can only offer so much. So talk about that, and how did you find this women's sprint crit team?
Yeah.
I want to join a crit team. I don't know.
So the Cyclery had done a lot of crits in general. Like we always went out to BC Super Week, which was like 10 days of racing in 11 days or something. And it was very crit heavy, because crits are a lot, again, for a smaller team like the Cyclery, they were a lot more accessible because you don't need like the feed zone, you don't need a team car. Like it's, you're doing a kilometer circuit and it's pretty simple. There's also way more money in criterium racing than there seems to be in road racing. So that's also a factor. But so I'd done a lot of crits, and I had seen this team, LA Sweat at some of the Cyclery. And so I'd kind of like, they always just looked like a super fun group of women. Always out having a good time, like big smiles, but loving each other and just having a great time, which is what I've ultimately always wanted to do, is just be enjoying it. And the Cyclery, as time went on, started to become a little more track focused, because a lot of the girls that are on the team are also part of the national track team. So it just kind of ended up being that way. And I myself have done some track, but it wasn't for me. I didn't like it as much as some of the other girls. So I kind of started
to be outside. Thanks.
Yeah, I like being outside. Exactly. And just, I mean, if I'd grown up and maybe there was one in Ottawa, it would have been more of an option to me. But again, yeah, I like being outside for sure. And so, yeah, I kind of started to look at other teams, and with Jenny's help, like she kind of recommended this team as well. And I got a contact, and I applied in 2018 and I didn't get on. I had a former teammate now, she's kind of stepped aside from LA Sweat, but Sarah Coney, who lives in Vancouver, is from—
Oh my God, Sarah Coney. She used to be in Ottawa, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she lived in Ottawa.
And she moved to
Vancouver.
Was it Vancouver?
Yeah.
Vancouver. And she had some kids.
No kids.
Okay, so this is another Sarah I'm thinking of. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I knew Sarah from Ottawa briefly, but she was on LA Sweat, and so I kind of got in touch with her and asked about the team atmosphere and everything too, and she loved it. But that year, so yeah, I applied in 2018, I got for the 2018 season, and I didn't get on. And then I kept racing with the Cyclery again for 2018, and then applied again to get on for 2019 for LA Sweat and got accepted. So just, putting a little bit more work and getting Sarah's recommendation as well to the director, Kelly, helped for sure. But as well, the Cyclery, I'd outgrown the Cyclery, like I say. They were doing a little more track stuff. the core group of girls that I'd gone through it with had changed a bit, and I needed to move on too. It was like a bit more of like a personal thing. I had a teammate that had passed away, who was on that team, and it was, I guess I would have grown it, but it was also a bit of like, I need to leave that there because that's where she was, and I need to like move on too. So it was like a perfect good step. It was a needed step, and it was perfect timing for that too. And yeah, I've loved being on LA Sweat.
I thought of you when I heard that, and Jenny and I, we chatted about it too, because that was a pinnacle kind of moment in her history too, as a coach. So what kind of criteria do you have to get on a crit team?
Yeah,
obviously, results.
Yes. It's like any other job you apply for. Like I wrote a resume and I sent it to the director, and I had won a couple more like local Ontario races. There was a race I won that was down in Kitchener, and I beat this kind of like legendary sprinter, Laura Van Gilder. I beat her in a sprint, and that was like a big deal. And it was like super close. Like they had to do photo finish type thing. And that was really exciting. So I think that helped solidify me getting onto LA Sweat, because like she's a big name. But yeah, just having a couple more years of results, and just sometimes you have to, it's for me, it's not natural to brag about myself, but like in a resume, you kind of have to, and you have to say what you're good at and do that so that they know, because they don't know. So yeah, you got to talk yourself up a little bit, and also explain your goals and what you want, and just your personality. Because I know Kelly, who runs LA Sweat, is really big on, again, team atmosphere and everyone getting along and having a good time. Because if you can't trust each other, you don't like each other, you're not going to race well together. And so before she accepted me on the team, we had a Zoom call, and just to get to know each other a little bit, and like my attitude and stuff, because you don't want to bring someone on that might bring down the rest of the team and stuff. But yeah, so that was
well, obviously
results is definitely part of it, but it's just your overall attitude and stuff too.
Do they only take a certain amount of girls?
Yeah, most races you can only have a certain number entered anyways. So we have, I think on the team this year there's like 8. We have a couple, myself from Canada, the majority is from the States. We have a girl from Australia. So we are kind of from all over.
Wow.
But yeah, there's only a certain handful of people, but also in terms of resources as well. Like our sponsors are only going to be able to give us so much and stuff.
Yeah, they have to pay for the Australian girl to come over and race.
Exactly.
Like
she usually comes over, like stays for the summer in the States.
like,
I fly back and forth more often, but yeah, Australia is a little bit further.
Yeah, I'd say. So now you're on the team. Did you get to spend, did you get a full season with them?
2019, thankfully.
Oh gosh. How was that? I think I saw some articles about.
It was incredible, actually. So for the past while, I've been going down to Tucson, Arizona for the winters to train, because I'm a bit of a wuss, although this winter I've done it. We're sort of seeing the end of the tunnel. But yeah,
you become a Swifter like everybody else. Like
yeah, I did.
I know. It's almost the FOMO can't keep you away. Like there's so much going on there.
It's true. There's so many people on there, and it is pretty neat. You can connect with people all over the world, and like I have weekly rides with my teammates and stuff. So it's a way to keep in touch as well. It's just another form of social media, really. But yeah, so 2019, I was down training, and then I was going to meet the team for the first time at the season opener in Alabama in March. And oh, my clock's about to go off.
Love the clock.
The old school clock. So then, yeah, I was flying from Tucson to Birmingham, Alabama, and I remember my flight got delayed. And then I got canceled because there was like a big tornado, or not tornado, like snowstorm that was happening. And I was like 2 or 3 days delayed meeting my team, like, and for what would be our team camp. Like we were supposed to be at team camp like 4 days before this race. And I only got there the day before the race. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm Emily, like late to the party. And I showed up, I got my bike, I got all new stuff, and the next day was our first race. And we went out, we raced, and I won. And like entirely
just like that. Thanks for bringing me on.
I was like, oh, sorry, I'm late, I'm here.
Yeah, really
like,
here.
Entirely unexpected. And like we were just racing really well together. And then it just came to the second last lap, and there was a gambler's preem. So like a preem is a prize you go for, and the first person to cross the line that lap. And so the gambler's preem is one that happens right before the finish. So it's a gamble, because like whether or not you're going to hold on to win.
Yeah.
And so I did. I went for the gambler's preem, and then I just kept going. And I did the last lap by myself and won. And then my teammate Sarah Coney came third, actually. So it was like a really good opener for LA Sweat, and a good opener.
I told you she was good.
Exactly. I was like, and then like I say, I just set up my bike the day before, and I didn't touch anything since. It's like, oh, it works. It's good. I'm not adjusting anything. It's fine.
Was this a new bike or your bike?
Brand new.
Oh, geez. Nice.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's good.
Yes. I got like.
I remember I was warming up on the course, and that bike had like the hover specialized handlebars. They were a little bit of a strange shape. And I was like, oh, these are really weird. Like, I don't even know if I can like take my hand off. And then I won. So I had to take both my hands off, and I was like, okay. But I was riding the bike the first time really riding it. I was like, wow, this feels so weird.
I can always imagine like doing I won, and like and having a bit of a crash on.
Oh no, that would have been so bad.
I think of like, when you go for like, and then you just like wobble and like fall.
Like I was able to do it because I was a fair bit ahead of everyone else. I can't really, the people that do it when it's like such a tight sprint and still put their hands up is impressive.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. I'm like,
you never want to lose because you celebrate too early or something. Like,
yeah, get the picture.
Yeah.
Crash. So you got a really good season in, and I guess you spent most of the time in the States that summer, 2019.
Yeah, the only racing I did in Canada was BC Super Week again, which Sarah and I did, just us for LA Sweat, because she already lives out there. And I was like, well, it's one of my favorite series. And so I went out there as well. And then we went back to the States after that.
Yeah. I know it's canceled again this year. I saw
so
that.
So much is already getting canceled. Yes, like 2020, there was no season. And then we'll see 2021, knock on wood.
So here's a question. How did you handle the cancellation of like everything? As an athlete, because like I've talked to different people, and a lot of people process it differently. And how did you process that whole like you're not leaving home kind of deal?
Well, thankfully, I was in Tucson when I had to fly home. I was in Tucson from February to March of 2020. So at least I got some traveling in early on. But then I had to come home because of COVID. And at first I was like, I wasn't sure I was going to come home. I didn't really see the
just stay in the States. And
I was like, maybe it's safer to stay and not travel. But then it started to progress, and actually I think my insurance got revoked because they were basically like, you have to come home. And I was like, okay, well now I have to go home. So I went home, I think like about this time last year is when I flew home, and I did my 2 weeks quarantine. And then I was kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I started just riding, and then slowly everything got canceled. And I think as it started to dawn on me that everything was going to get canceled, like this was a bigger deal than I think everyone originally thought. And I just kind of took the attitude right away that everything is going to be canceled. And then if something wasn't, like, great, that was a positive, but I just accepted it pretty early on. Whereas even some of my teammates kept holding on for races, and then they get canceled, and then they were disappointed again. Whereas like I was just disappointed originally, accepted it, and like moved on. And it was my first summer home in years. It was really nice, actually. Like I got to spend time with my boyfriend. I got to see Ottawa in the summer. I got to see the leaves change. Like it was really nice.
Oh my God. Okay. So let's talk about like that, because it's funny because, when you're an athlete, you're like constantly, I remember like the year, my club, my cycling, my team kind of, I don't know, we had a great season 2013, and then that after that season, everybody's like, oh, I'm not into, I don't want to race anymore. Some people went to other teams, and I was just like, oh my God, I had like 10 years of, and two babies, and the summer was always full with racing. What just happened? And should I rebuild a team? Or I'm like, no, I'm not going to go through that again. So what did you embrace, like, that you had kind of, missed after being like, so busy and traveling and things like that?
Most of the time I'm often working as well as like racing. So like when I'm home in between races, I was working, but everything was closed because of COVID too. So I wasn't even working. Like I had all the time in the world.
I know. What'd you do with it, Emily?
Yeah, I biked. Like, I mean, I watched a lot of Netflix at first, honestly, especially in like April when it was still kind of cold. But then I just started to explore more. Like I hadn't ridden here in quite a while, like big rides. So I got to do more adventure rides, which is a lot of fun, like some more gravel rides and yeah, just like riding with my boyfriend Cody and just kind of embracing it, which was really nice. And just kind of getting a large volume block in terms of training that, I'd only usually get at the beginning of the season, February, March, April type thing. But like I was able to do volume all year. So just like building my base up, which is only going to continue to help me as I continue to race. And that's currently what I'm still really doing. Cause like I say, the future this summer is
hopefully you don't turn into an endurance space.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Like, where'd my sprint go?
Exactly. I mean, thankfully, I think I built a little bit more to have the sprint, so I think it'll always be there to some capacity. But yeah, definitely, I'll have to sharpen that up before any racing actually starts.
Yeah. Or you're like, now I can start it earlier. Instead of like the 100 meters to the style, like start like 200 meters back and stuff. So did you start any projects?
I did a lot of baking.
Oh, I know everybody did baking.
Everyone did. I didn't do the sourdough though, but I did a lot of like cookies and baking. Bread seemed a little daunting, honestly.
I know there's quite a trend, eh?
And one of my teammates, the Aussie, actually, she was like making all these variations of banana bread, and that became her thing for COVID too.
That's hilarious.
But no, I rode my bike a lot. And I also got to hang out with my mom and my sister more as well, which was really lovely. Like we went on bike rides, and I got my sister to do her first 100 kilometers. And she did that in sneakers. So now I've got her a pair of shoes. Everyone was like, oh my God, get this girl a pair of clipless shoes and pedals.
Emily, what are you doing?
I know. Well, she was too nervous. So this year I've got her clipless shoes. She's trying them on the trainer. And so like,
oh, that's good.
Out, she'll be good to go.
You're out to the park when she gets. Yeah, I know. It was kind of like, well, I wish I had a little bit. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Like a blessing in disguise, I guess. Like you can only look at it. If you look at it in the negative light, it's going to be negative. If you look at it in positive light, you can make it a positive. But there was nothing I could do about it, so I might as well make the most of it.
Love the attitude, because I know some people are just like, oh my God, like, who am I? It's like your identity is so wrapped around like the person you are as the athlete. Mm-hmm. And then when it kind of almost disappears because you don't have anything to work towards, you're just like, who am I and what do I like doing? And I haven't really thought about that. Like, because you've always had those goals and to like.
No. And like, yeah, thankfully I was still able to bike, because then that if I wasn't able to bike, that would have been a different story. But like, there's a difference. Like, I mean, I wasn't racing, but I was still training and biking. So like, that was still part of it.
So now that you're kind of, all right, let's go back. I wanted to ask you, okay, so you've joined the women's LA sweat team. Now, where do you see yourself going? Like, what is your kind of personal path as an athlete and a female racer? Like, where do you want to end up in Europe? Like, where's your path? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, I guess?
I mean, I think most cyclists' goals tend to be going towards Europe, which I think is that's like the place you go. And yeah, I definitely like to race in Europe at some point. I guess my goals were like a little up in the air because it always, so much of it is results based. And now I have one season of no results, and like this season I might not have any results. But to continue to race, and like I want to, in 2019 I was kind of starting to become like a bigger contender on the criterium scene. And so in 2020 I was hoping to continue that and be like super consistent, and just kind of build more results and have other teams see that I was kind of a consistent finisher.
So have your eye on like another team, or like, you know, like, because you know how you said like you grew out, like you grow,
Yeah.
like as you grow, you look for bigger goals. Where's that kind of?
It's hard. Like right now, LA Sweat is a great fit, and we're still growing. And kind of the group I was brought on with in 2019, it was almost a whole new team at that point, and so we're all growing together, which is nice. And the women's side of cycling is interesting because sometimes there's a consistent team, and then it's gone. It folds the next year. LA Sweat's been pretty consistent. It's been around for 5 years. So I think also eventually I'd like to get back to more road racing, which would help me get to Europe in general, because crit racing is more of an North American thing. It doesn't happen in Europe as much. So if I wanted to go to Europe, I'd probably have to switch more back to road racing. But yeah, I guess
last year is a really good space for that.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
And this year.
Yeah. So, but it's hard because there's like seems to be women's teams popping up and folding all the time. Like it's not super consistent. And again, at least crit racing, you can do it on the cheap. Like you can go down, you can rent a car, you can just go do it. You can do it by yourself. You don't even need a team. Like obviously it makes the racing easier and stuff, but to go to a road race by yourself is pretty impractical, because like who's going to feed you at the feed zone? Who's going to be in your follow car? Stuff like that.
Do I get a follow car?
Exactly. Like
no, I know, and it's funny because I was just watching some flow sport women's races, and there was one that I think they were all getting ready for a race, and it just moments later, like this sponsor pulled out and the team was gone.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I was just like, wow, to be there 1 minute and like your team gone the next. I mean, I was like, seriously? And there's just like, yeah, this team's not showing up today. They're done. I'm like, whoa. And I guess you
pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah. Like that is kind of stressful, I would imagine.
For sure. And that's why, like I give Kelly so much credit, who's running LA Sweat. She's put blood, sweat, and tears into this team, and nothing but good things to say about it. So I definitely see myself there for a while. I also love the atmosphere of crit racing. It's so different compared to road racing. It's more of a party. It's like the NASCAR of bike racing.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that kind of party comes back. Right?
Exactly. That's also what I'm concerned about. Like after COVID is obviously not going to look the same as life pre-COVID. And I'm like, I love crit racing for the atmosphere and for the crowd. So what's it going to be like if there's no crowd and no atmosphere? It's not going to be.
It'd be kind of boring, eh? Just like nobody on the streets. Yeah. Well, that's kind of
I'm just in circles. At another moment, it's actually like a party.
Where's my party after the finish? Like, that's what I like. You know, you work hard for an hour and then you get to like sit back. And that's why I prefer crits to myself. I'm just like, I love the strategy. I love the speed, you know, and that's what I was saying. If I came back to racing, it would be only like in criteriums, because I'm like, I know what a road race looks like, and it wouldn't look pretty for me.
And it also too like depends on like the train you're able to put in. Like you can still do really well at crits and only put in so much training, whereas like road racing, you need to do those really large weeks and stuff. And if you're having to have a full-time job as well as training, it gets harder and harder to maintain that.
Because that's serious. I find the fitness level for road to be much higher
Mhm.
you know, like you said, the volume has to be there. Cause
Yeah.
like, ugh, I mean, I can hurt for an hour and I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
exactly.
All right. Well, that's been awesome, Emily. Well, I'm like, I can't wait to see where you're going. I mean, like, you're still super young. I mean, like,
I
gosh.
mean, it's so funny. I am, but I also, because I've been doing this forever, I feel so old.
Well, I mean, well, can I ask you how old you are?
I'm 27. I turned 28 this year.
Okay. Yeah. So you're still in your 20s.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I feel like I've been around forever, which arguably I guess I have, but I also have to remember and remind myself that I still have time, because the women's peloton, there are women that are up there. So, and
I know. I'm like, I think of some of the ladies who are much older than me that are killing it, like say on gravel racing and mountain bike, if I ever want to go back there, but cyclocross, things like that. And I'm like, ah, you know what? I can handle those things as well. And I'm like, I still got time.
exactly.
But
And you always
do
have
you,
time.
yeah, do you see so you're looking at so this is the last question. So you're looking at your cycling career. Everybody's kind of looking at their athletic, like sports careers, I'm sure right now. But where do you see, like, when you decide to retire, who knows when that is, like officially retire as being a pro cyclist, what do you see yourself doing?
That's a really big question.
I know.
And because I've been doing this so long, it's also hard to comprehend. Like, I mean, obviously I wasn't pro at 11, but like I was living that pro lifestyle almost, like still going to all the races and spending my summers doing it. And I've been doing that now for over half my life. So it's like, it's a scary thought to think about. I'm happy. Like, I have a university degree. Like, I did university while I was bike racing. So like I have that to fall back on. And I currently am working with the University of Ottawa, so we'll see where that takes me as well. But I honestly, like, I don't know. It's a big, I don't see myself retiring soon.
Okay. Well,
I'm still
obviously.
enjoying it. And I like still know I can progress. But my degree is in international development, so maybe something in the in like in a charity and stuff like that. Like, I've always thought World Bicycle Relief would be really cool, because it pairs both my passions. It pairs biking and it pairs, you know, helping others and my degree. But also just taking any opportunity presented to me and seeing where that goes too. You never know.
Weird, because like, you know, with Jenny, she retired and started, you know, giving back or coaching, or do you see your kind of self going that route, or
I could
more like,
definitely see that as well. And I would love to do that. It's hard to think about now, but knowing what I went through and like what gaps were missing, and if I could help someone or a team fulfill those gaps would be great. And I like to organize things. Like, I think be a pretty good like DS.
yeah,
Coach, I don't know. I kind of tried. I coached some women a couple seasons ago. I myself, I need a coach. Like, I'm not someone that can coach myself, so I don't know if I could coach others, because I feel like I'd feel bad. But I think I'd be a pretty good, like, yeah, DS or like Soigneur even, because then I still get to be in the sport. Would be really cool.
so DS for everybody is director sportif. I was just trying to like, what did DS stand for again? But yeah, I mean, like, managers
Mm-hmm.
of teams are huge, and I did a fair amount of that, managing my own master. I'm like, can I be the manager and the coach and the racer?
Yeah.
I'm like, some year I'm like, no, Sylvie, you can't do that because it's conflicting. So, well, this has been awesome, Emily. It's been a super pleasure having you on the podcast. And so I want to thank our listeners. And so make sure that you like, comment, and share. And of course, Emily and I would love a 5-star review for this. And don't forget to follow her on all her social media platforms. I will put them in the comments so you can keep like an ear to the ground and see what she's up to. And of course, you know, hopefully the scene will change by May. We're all like
We'll see.
crossing our fingers, but you know, like, and you should look at the Quebec calendar. I know it's local, but
No, for sure.
go and kill
I
it.
mean,
There's lots of crits on it.
yes, local racing's better than no racing. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
So with that, thanks a lot, everybody. And thanks again, Emily. It's been a great pleasure. I always enjoy bumping into you and talking to you. That's what I've been doing over the years. Hey, Emily.
We've both always been consistent in the scene.
That's right. We're always around Preston Street.
Exactly.
I'm not racing it. I'm always watching it. But thanks again and have yourself an amazing day, everybody.